Shifting tones in a video game is nothing new. When you're trying to set a mood and play with people's emotions, you naturally have to jump from one end of the spectrum to the other, but without proper significance, some moments can feel very out of place. Man, video games are weird. Actually, not just weird, that's a sliding scale in of itself where one man's weird is another's bread and butter. Some games transcend beyond the realm of simply being weird and pull off feats of pure insanity. Because insanity isn't just limited to the wonderfully strange, sometimes it makes no sense whatsoever with fruits of labour that stick out like the most injury-stricken of thumbs. What I'm trying to say is that some video games make sense and some decide that making sense is optional. The question is whether or not a game should be proud of moments that stand out a little too much. I guess it will come down to whether or not they were intentional or not. The trade-off between deliberately throwing out a scene that doesn't fit or getting enough wrong with something so that it stands out for all the wrong reasons due to lack of relevance, I guess. So there's lots to play with regards to dramatically shifting tones, and did you know that 29th of May is Put a Pillow in Your Fridge Day? Don't know why you'd want to eat a pillow. Didn't even know they spoiled. Despite the age group that it's marketed for, Pokemon is hardly hesitant to throwing around weird, creepy areas and moments. But even though Pokemon is clearly for kids, I wouldn't really say that any of these locations are out of place. Lavender Town and Mount Pyre are Pokemon cemeteries, places like the old chateau and the strange house are just where human ghosts and ghost Pokemon congregate, even the distortion world in Platinum is just Giratina saying, "Fuck it, you can walk on walls now." They all kind of fit within their own separate circumstances, and it's some feat to have locations as varied as these all work so well. Then Gen 6 came along and couldn't really be bothered anymore. What was the most memorable location in Kalos? Was it Lumiose City with all its shops and its endless breeding circle? Maybe it was the Battle Chateau with all its fancy trainers. I don't know, I kinda like Snowbell City as well. But if you said that the scary house was the place you remembered the fondest, you're a fucking idiot. That's the thing, creepy areas aren't automatically out of place. They only really become incompatible with the world around them when they don't follow through on the feel of unease surrounding them. Kalos' scary house? Come on guys. I'm not sure what this place was supposed to be, but by this time Pokemon has built up a bit of a reputation for having disturbing settings with some payout. All that happens in the least scary house you'll ever visit is you listen to one guy tell a spooky story about faceless men and then that's it. So no backstory on this house. Who is this guy? What purpose did it serve for all of your friends to also be present for the story? What did I gain from this? Could we have gone through Route 14 without this little detour? Yeah, I think so. I mean, it doesn't add anything, it frankly has no reason to exist. And in a series that's previously brought us the likes of Lavender Town, I wouldn't be too proud of this. Sonic Adventure is an endless source of entertainment. I replayed it recently, and when you're not speeding around levels as characters who aren't Big the Cat, you're laughing yourself stupid at the cutscenes. There are a lot of odd moments in the game, but there was one that I knew about beforehand that just doesn't belong in the slightest. Let's have a quick lesson on the differences between an Easter egg and a reference. An Easter egg, much like the name implies, is an inside joke that you have to hunt down. Things like hidden messages, funky little features that are thrown in that have no greater bearing on the game and its plot. Meanwhile, references are callbacks or shoutouts to something completely unrelated. Pretty much a subtle little nod to another game, another series, or something else. Keyword there is subtle. You might not have to work as hard to find them as you would with Easter eggs, but references don't tend to be as obvious. So, with that in mind, what the fuck is going on here? Pretty early on in Sonic Adventure, you need to go to a casino and collect quite a lot of rings. It's a little contrived, but it's a decent enough excuse to use Sonic as a pinball. This is okay, I get this. Hey look, one of the games is based off Knights. This is called a reference, it's subtle enough. Not sure about this whole poker thing we've got going on though. But occasionally you'll shoot Sonic into a special area, and should you lose the ball from here, I mean, I get what this is supposed to be, I know what Knights Games is about, sort of, but I'm not sure why there's a transition like this that goes on for about 10 seconds longer than it should. This isn't a reference or an Easter egg, this is just a random part of a different game thrown into your game of pinball. I think surreal is the right word. Frankly, you could attribute that word to a number of parts of Sonic Adventure. It's an experience. I really like joke endings, at least as long as they aren't the only ending, that'd be weird. But I do enjoy jumping through a certain array of hoops and doing things that you might not immediately think of doing in order to sit back and watch something really silly unfold. There's probably some debate to be had as to whether or not joke endings would count as an out-of-place moment, but sometimes they show up in areas where you would have never expected them. I'm sure you know where this is going. So of course the dog ending from Silent Hill 2 is on here, but let me take some time to explain why, because what you're witnessing here is art, really. There's some natural mood whiplash when an ending to one of the more depressing games out there is that a Shiba Inu was controlling all the events in the game, but I think it's also worth noting that at no point is this ending played for anything other than laughs. Which would be fine in any other game, but Silent Hill 2 is a markedly humorless game, so this ends up feeling like an overload of craziness that you can't really prepare yourself for. Because honestly, with a dog orchestrating everything that happened in a credit sequence which is literally just dogs barking kind of melodiously, it's probably too much. Pyramid Head or our glorious canine overlord? Which one are you more afraid of? Can something still be out of place in a game or a series that frequently puts things where they really shouldn't be? Because there's a lot of weird franchises out there, but I wouldn't necessarily say that all these odd moments are particularly out of place, especially if this is effectively the norm. It makes you wonder what games like these need to do in order to have a moment that doesn't really belong. Oh, you might regret that. Metal Gear, as I've said ad nauseum at this point, is the kind of series that likes to mix serious tones with slightly less serious tones. The games might be stupid in places, but they're usually stupid for a reason. Let's just put it this way, MGS5 had a very interesting story. So much so that a man engulfed in fire and a child wearing a gas mask aren't really what stands out the most in this game. Skullface is pretty weird, turns into a raccoon early in the game for some reason, but honestly, that's not really his legacy. When things start to get interesting at the end of the first chapter, Mr. Skullface delivers his sensational line about lusting for revenge, which should be a theme the series keeps open if that pachinko pattern gets some use. But the sexual tension was wrapped up before this when you hitch a ride with Skullface, allowing him to clarify any story bits you were struggling with, and also giving you an opportunity to stare longingly into his eyes while Sins of the Father play over the top. Nah, seriously, that is a thing that happened in this game. Having eerie silence would have been one thing, but having music as dramatic as this with absolutely no action going on whatsoever? I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that this is the most awkward 2 minutes in the series and maybe also my life in general. You're just sitting there. Don't know who put this song on the stereo, but you're just waiting for the kiss that never happens. And I know Metal Gear has done stuff like this before. The ladder from Snake Eater immediately springs to mind, but that was used as a very deliberate transition. In The Phantom Pain, you're just listening to a song. Would have been a great time for Snake to stop being a semi-silent protagonist. Seriously, crack some jokes, do anything. I can't keep showing this footage, it's not that interesting. I mentioned previously that disturbing moments in video games aren't necessarily out of place as long as they work towards something bigger. It's all about setting different tones really, kind of like how comic relief relieves some of the tension, creepy moments ramp it back up again. If the bass tone you're looking for is more on the freaky side, then it's not likely that these moments can ever be out of place. And yet, Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess is more than happy to be the exception to the rule. For a while, you could make a case that the 3D Zelda games were mislabeled by ESRB. Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask both got away with an E for everyone despite having some pretty nightmarish content dotted around, but when Twilight Princess was released, that got bumped up to a teen with a game taking a more mature approach. It's the story of the land of Hyrule being plunged into an all-consuming darkness. It's hardly hiding away its horrors like other Zelda games. This trade-off meant that the creepiness was more consistent. Nothing too dramatic, but just enough to keep things interesting. It might not be as subtle as Majora's Mask, and that game had a giant fucking moon with a face, though it has its place. But then you mop up the Tears of Light and Lanayru and it all goes to shit. This cutscene where a light spirit fills you in on the history of Hyrule is off in so many different ways. I mean, the message isn't so bad, lots of power will eventually corrupt and turn you to dust, but it's the manner the game goes about telling it that really sticks out. If the rest of Twilight Princess wasn't as understated as other games, this cutscene is 3 minutes of the game trying to earn its teen rating. It's definitely disturbing, don't get me wrong with that one, but it has absolutely no purpose in the game. Nothing implied in the cutscene ever happens in the rest of Twilight Princess, and for what it's trying to get across, it's about 5 times more freaky than it has any right to be. There's just something about Link facing the player while screaming his head off and the torrent of falling Ilias that reek of the game trying a little too hard to be scary. And the fact that this cutscene exists on its own with no reference back to it later just makes it stick out even more. It's like a parody horror film at times. This has been RabbidLuigi, and nothing is gained from this cutscene being in the game, which is even more remarkable considering it's built up as a big exposition dump. It gives out all this backstory, but it isn't put to use outside of fan theories after the game. It almost feels like Twilight Princess only just remembered that it needed to be a scary game, and so it all came out in one go. And it ended up being as messy as it sounds. Got a topic that you'd like me to discuss in a countdown? Leave a suggestion in a comment below and head over to my Twitter, where I'll be holding a vote to decide the subject of the next countdown based off the best of your submissions. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Hello everybody, hope you enjoyed that. I suddenly found myself quite busy this week. I had an awful lot to do in the same amount of time as usual, but I'm very glad I got to this point in time and didn't have to rush any of it or really be in a position where I would have to think about rushing something. It means that I am more busy than before, but I'd rather be busy than sort of just sitting there doing very little. Anyway, if you want to support the show more directly, you can head over to my Patreon and donate some money and receive updates and behind the scenes footage of me in front of a green screen with sunglasses on. That was a weird day.